Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Ishtiaq Hussain, Associate Professor, Department of Education and Psychology, CUST. Today, we will discuss about the education course code EDU-583, lecture number 14, session 2. Salient features of education policies and implementation. Outline of the session: New Education Policy 1972 to 80 and National Education Policy and Implementation 1979. National Education Policy 1972 to 80. This policy made recommendations similar to the National Education Policy 1970, but its keynote was the nationalization of the privately managed institutions. The implementation of the nationalization program put severe constraints on the national exchequer. The non-development expenditure rose by about 6 times. The policy of nationalization of education left long-lasting impact on Pakistan society and culture. The Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto announced a national education policy on 29th March 1972. The Education Policy 1972 was formulated with the aim of achieving of the following salient features. The first feature of the policy was promotion of ideology. Ideology is important in the following aspects. The first one is ideology is a motivating force for a nation while and which is striving hard to bring stability and nationalhood. It improves and it provides the cement binding base to the scattered groups in society. Ideology brings them closer to each other on a common platform. The next feature of the policy was universal education. The achievement of universal primary education has been an official objective in Pakistan almost since the country was founded in 1947. Since that time, however, the date for the realization of that goal has had continuously to be postponed due to the following reasons. The first one was low female participation at primary level. The second was rapid increase in the population of 5 to 9 age groups. The next was dropout rate of up to 50% at primary level. Next is schools in far-flung areas. Next one is scarcity of resources and school hours. And the last one is opportunity cost. The next salient feature of the policy was personality development. Education helps the development of the qualities of an individual, such as his physical, his social, his mental, emotional makeup, as well as his temperament and character, what is called personality. The next feature of the policy was curriculum based on socio-economic needs of the society. Cultural and social changes and expectations can affect the implementation of the curriculum. This includes major changes in the society, such as unemployment patterns, social values, economic growth, family relationships, employer and community expectations can affect the curriculum implementation. The next feature of the policy, you can say the salient feature of this policy was integrated technical and science education. More and more studies show that technology integration in the curriculum improves students' learning processes and outcomes. Some of the ways to use technology to enhance teaching science, like show educational and interactive videos, listen to postcards, play lesson games, use classroom management apps, use smartphones and tablet apps, go on virtual field trips, get students' feedback and survey. The next feature of the policy was nationalization of educational institutions. The nationalization program began on 2nd January 1972 with a vision to promote economic democracy, liberalization, and initial mainstream goal to put Pakistan in the line with state progressivism. On 29th March 1972, through which all the private education institutions would take over by the federal government or provincial governments. This rule would implemented immediately. According to that, the federal government would take over all private education institutions with all assets in the area. The next feature of the policy was free and universal education up to class 10th. From October 1st, 1972, education up to class 8th was made free for both genders. In next step, from 1974, free education will be extended up to class 9th and 10th in all schools. Finally, from 1979, the education will become universal up to FAFSC for boys and girls. Unfortunately, this policy could not be implemented due to the less resources and two consecutive wars like 1965 and 1971 between Pakistan and India. Pakistan economic rate was too low. The next national education policy of this session is 1979. Soon after the assumption of office as Chief Martial Law Administrator, the President General Muhammad Ziaul Haq convened a national education conference fully presented by eminent educationists, scholars, lawyers, teachers, and students to recommend bold new ventures for reconstruction of education in the country. In 1979, National Education Conference was held for reviewing the education system and develop a framework. Finally, this policy was announced in February 14th, 1979. The first feature of the policy was fostering loyalty to Islam. Being loyal and having love for one's country is a part of the Islamic faith. The Quran states, "Oh, who believe, obey God and obey the Prophet and obey those in authority from among you." There are six major beliefs in Islam. The first one is belief in Allah as the one and only God, belief in angels, believe in the holy books, believe in the prophets, believe in the day of judgment, believe in the predestination. The next feature of the policy was creation of concept of Muslim Ummah. The community or Ummah was historically formed in response to the divine revelation granted to the Prophet Muhammad in the 7th century. Hence, the concept of understanding of Ummah is to be sought not only in the Quran but also in the early Islamic history. According to the aim of this policy, the concept of Muslim Ummah was realized. The next feature of this policy was promotion of science and technical education. Technical education deals with some practical or mechanical skills. It includes training in the trade, in commerce, in agriculture, in medicine, and engineering. We can increase the material resources of our country with its help. Summarized in the aims from the policy, build on the ideas that pupils bring to lesson, help pupils direct their own learning, support pupils to retain and retrieve knowledge, use practical work as part of a learning sequence, develop scientific vocabulary, use structured feedback. The following strategies were suggested to achieve the goals. The first one was curriculum revision, merging madrasa in traditional education system, use medium of instruction Urdu. Fourth one was effective participation of community in literacy programs. Fifth was linked science and technical education. And sixth was separate setup for male and female. Unfortunately, this policy was not implemented properly and failed due to lack of planning and financial resources.